Hey yo, we put free money where the mic is. He got it on lock like Rikers. Green Rebates get you paid, so a lot of people like us. Money Talks Podcast, watch it on all your devices. Woo!
And I'm here with a man who shares the same last name as me, David Cohen. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Great to meet you.
How you feel? How's MJ Biz been so far?
So far, so good. I just watched a lady walk by with a pony on a leash. So, I mean, we're doing pretty good right now.
A pony on a leash?
Yeah, pony on a leash.
Why was she having a pony?
That's a really good question. There she is right over there.
Oh,
it's an actual small little pony on a leash. You see that, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So here we are, MJ, 2024.
Okay, I just found a new person to interview. It's been fun interviewing you, but I want the pony lady. No, but Dave Cohen. So I just want to know a little bit more about your story. So where were you born and raised, and give me a glimpse into your childhood.
Way back.
We're going way childhood trauma.
Okay.
Let's talk about it.
Born and raised just outside of Boston. You're going to hear that accent come creeping in here every once in a while.
Love it.
Small little town called Chelmsford. About 30 minutes outside of the city. Went to high school there, went to college in that area, UMass Lowell. Got a degree in industrial technology, a master's in manufacturing management science. Then got my first job in that general area in, 1992, wow. I think, dating myself here. And worked at a contract manufacturer called Frayne Corporation. In Reading, Massachusetts for 20 years. And all kinds of down and dirty manufacturing, oil and stamping and turn parts and plastic parts, a lot of automotive.
Right.
So I learned my craft in as a quality guy, measuring parts for automotive companies.
Got it.
Yeah.
So when you were because everyone has that moment when you're 18, 19, and the whole world, society is telling you now you need to figure out what you want to do with your life. What did you take interest to, when you were in college? Did you know what you wanted to do for the rest of your life, or were you just throwing spaghetti at a wall?
Yeah, I got a pretty good story around that.
Okay.
So my father was worked for Raytheon. And I knew that I wanted to be in some kind of making stuff space.
Right.
And I got my school, UMass Lowell, was about 10 miles from my house. So I got to pick up my stuff and move in with a bunch of friends on campus 10 miles from my house. And I think it took me 2 semesters to be on academic probation and about to get thrown out of school because I was having a great old time. So we're having dinner one night, and my dad, now he's aware that I'm failing and I'm on academic probation, and just kind of looks at me at the dinner table and says, look, I mean, this seems like it's too hard for you. So, you want to get a job or do something?
Yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? It's school, it's college. He said, look, if you can't cut it doing this, obviously we can find something that's a little bit easier for you.
Wow.
And
that's a great
just
father.
hit me, hit me at the time to start really buckling down and, focus on things that are important. Really didn't exit the whole social scene of having fun, but really prioritized, digging in and learning.
Got it.
Then I got an opportunity to co-op at a couple of companies and really understand what working at companies was like. And then my brain realized, okay, it's coming. You got to start going here.
What did you find out that you were really good at? Because everyone has a superpower in the professional world.
Superpower, that's a good one. I liked understanding how things were made, and just I was able to co-op at GE, which was making aircraft engine components at the place that I worked at, and seeing, how this little piece of whatever it is that you're looking at, once it gets to its final resting spot, it's a jet engine that goes on a plane that flies people.
Yeah.
And that whole chain of events really fascinated me. And I don't know if it was necessarily a secret sauce or so, but once I got into the working world, about 10 years into it, I really got obsessed with the management of those systems and how you set it up and how you run people and motivate people and get them to do the best that they can do and bring out the best in people.
Cool.
So I guess kind of loosely answers your question.
Yeah, totally. And then are you one of those people who is obsessed with figuring out how and why things work? like lighting, aqueducts,
Yeah,
chairs.
I'm obsessed the intersection between. I love looking at things and figuring out how they work, but I'm not a mechanically inclined person. I'm not the guy that's going to take apart the engine in their garage and put it back together.
Right.
But also the intersection of how you get a group of people to get that system to work as good as it can work.
Right.
And I think that was the early days for me of really being obsessed, may not be the right word because I didn't even know what it was at the time, but leadership.
Totally.
Like really putting a system of people together to oversee a system of putting something else together.
Right. So you've been managing teams since the 90s, still doing it today.
Yeah.
How much has leadership changed? Like, take managing a team of 25-year-olds in 1995 versus 2024.
So I was that 25-year-old back then, and I got my first job, and I was told, you're going to go out and stand next to this machine that's molding parts, and I want you to measure a certain amount of parts every hour or half hour or whatever it was, and record all this information and give the guy who's running the machine the feedback to make sure that the parts stay within specification. So there I am out there, I got my thing, I'm measuring, and I go to the guy and I'm like, look, this isn't going right. To boil it down to real simple terms. And he said, look, that's really nice. Take your chart and your tools and the pieces and get out of my face. I'm really not interested in what you have to say at all. So back then, it was a different world than it is today. Of reliability and making sure things are perfect and measured right. But that also is the piece of you got to learn how to deliver the message to the person in the right way if you want to get them to do what you need them to do. And that I love that part of it.
Totally.
I love that part. I loved being told to get the hell out of my face and stop talking to me. But I also really love figuring out how to go back to that person and be like, look, I got to do this. You got to do this. We might as well figure out how to do this the right way together.
Totally. Do you find that you have to like talk to each person differently, like handle each person?
The world is full of personalities. And getting your way into the person's conscience of getting them to understand what you're saying and want to do what you're telling to do is a billion different puzzles.
Totally.
Totally is.
So you're working in like auto manufacturing. You find a passion for leading teams, operations. How do you get into the lighting world?
So this company that I was at, Frame Corporation, graduated over my time of being there. They made the little needle in your dashboard that tells the speed and the tachometer and the gas level in your car. So each one of those things is a small little light pipe because behind the dashboard there's LEDs that light up that and make it the color it is and the evenness. And so Frame at the time was real experts at that lighting. And right around that time in the late 90s, I don't know exactly what the date was, but the first high-powered LED came out from a company called Lumileds. And Lumileds came to our company and said, look, how do we get the light from this thing that's just this blaring, intense light and focus it on objects, a street light, an office space, a painting. And that got me into LED lighting. We turned into an optics company. Secondary optics is what it was called, and we were one of the largest secondary optics companies in the world. Which got me into all facets of LED lighting. The business grew very, very quickly. We had to figure out how to increase our capacity very quickly, which led me to China, which was where there was tons of molding capacity. I wound up going there over a time span of 3 or 4 years, like every other month. My boss and I, the owner at the time, who's still the owner, we got together and he's like, you want to just go over there and do this? Set up a couple of factories, set up a supply chain, get us going. Picked up my wife and 5-year-old daughter and our cat, and we went to Hong Kong.
No way.
And for 2 years I was traveling from, a little less than 2 years, from Hong Kong up into China, working in China all week, taking the train back down on Fridays, and that was like a crash course in hardcore manufacturing.
I bet.
That was like the Wild West. I mean, I was going places where there wasn't roads.
Oh my God.
At certain times. So, really, that got me immersed in lighting. So now I was talking to companies that were making lights, companies that were making LEDs, companies that were making all the components that go into LED lighting. Left there after about 18 months or so, and we had bought a small company in Italy, moved my family to just outside of Milan, and that was where the design center was of the real experts that were designing these really complex pieces of plastic. Just to give you an example of the complexity, one of the projects that they did was to relight the Mona Lisa.
Holy crap.
So they came up with this unique one-off lighting system that sits in the Louvre today and is the thing that brings out the true colors of the Mona Lisa. Wow. So everything from street lights to office lights to museum lights to paintings. Came back to the U.S. The company that I was at, unfortunately, for 20 years ran into some real financial challenges for one reason or the other. A customer of mine reached out and said, we just bought this lighting electronics company in the Netherlands. Like, I just got back from Italy 9 months ago. Seriously. Made me an offer, was too good to turn down. 9 months later, we packed back up. Wow. Went over to the Netherlands.
What city? In Amsterdam? Or
Breda.
Breda,
so Breda, for the Dutch people listening.
Nice.
Right in the south, really close to Belgium.
Cool.
Took that company over, turned it around, hired a Dutch local staff, turned it over to them in about a year, and then the business that bought them was Future Electronics. They moved me to London to run their European lighting business. So I was the head of a pretty large organization that sold all kinds of lighting components into the space. Did that for about, I want to say, a year and a half. It could have been a little less. And got recruited by a big European lighting company, Schrader, to come back to the United States and take over their U.S. operations, which was really my first kind of dipping my toe in the water of really leading an organization. That led me to Texas, where we set up operations, and Texas led me to Fluence.
Nice.
A very good friend of mine was doing some work for a private equity firm that was considering taking Fluence. The owners wanted to sell it out into the market, and he connected me with the owners. One thing led to another. 2018, I get offered the job of COO of Fluence to work under the original founder who had just sold it to Osram.
Gotcha.
So that gets me to 6 years ago. 24 years of my life. Well, actually, my entire life compacted into a 5-minute conversation.
Yeah. So did you, what if I told 30-year-old you that one day you'd be working in cannabis? What would that 30-year-old say?
I would have laughed. There's no way. Yeah. I was an automotive electronics guy. Because this company that I worked at Frayne was a contract manufacturer. So aside from the optics business, we didn't really design anything ourselves. We made stuff for other people. And I thought that, I truly thought that I was going to work at that company for the rest of my life, and work for the guy that I worked for at the time, who I am still friends with today.
Got it.
And I would have never believed you if you would have told me that. Yeah.
And now you're one of the heavy hitters. So so Fluence, 2018 to 2022. How does
so Osram buys Fluence from the original founders. They hire me to come in. I'm connected with Osram through my time in Europe, not directly, but I know who they are. My friend introduces me to the founders. They hire me immediately after Osram buys the company. They hire me to come in as chief operating officer to work under one of the founders, Nick Clace, who, quick plug here, probably one of the most brilliant product marketing people I have ever met.
Wow.
So it was his vision to create an LED light to grow plants, and he was manic obsessive about it.
Yeah.
And he did it. I mean, he really took something from nothing and sold it to Osram. I worked under him for, I want to say, about a month. And I just remember one day he came in, he's like, yeah, you're really good at this. I'm kind of tired. I'm going home.
Oh, my God.
And my contract was to work on him for 3 years. To learn the business, the biology, photosynthesis, PPFD, all this stuff I knew nothing about.
Right.
I mean, I knew LED lighting. I knew how to make a light. But this was a real particular industry of LED lighting, of growing plants.
Right.
And he was kind of like, yeah, you got this.
No way.
Literally, he came into work on a Friday, cleaned out his office. I came in on Monday. I was the CEO. That was it.
Unbelievable.
Trial by fire. Here you go.
Wow. What was
So-
that transition like? Was it
Well,
did
it was
you
a
get your
good
ass
transition
kicked?
because he built a great company
Got
and he
it.
built a fantastic team of people,
Gotcha.
which I basically inherited. You know, he handed me the keys to a Ferrari.
Wow.
You know, so what my team did, and what Osram allowed me to do was because of what he did. And Osram looked at it and said, "Here's a tank of gasoline. We want this
Right.
Ferrari to scream."
Yeah.
So it was, I always get these numbers a little bit off. So Fluence was maybe a 10, 12, $15 million company or so when I took over. Osram wanted it to be $100 million, and that's what happened. So 2019, we did maybe 50. 2020, we did 100. Then it was like 150.
Oh my
It was
goodness.
just trajectory of straight up growth.
Is it when you're growing that fast? Do you trip over your own feet? Like
All
is it
the
hard?
time, every day. Yeah, you need to make decisions fast. You need to not be afraid to fail,
Right.
and you need to be really, really honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Of the fact that whatever it is you do or say, you need great people.
Right.
You absolutely need great people, and the people that I was fortunate enough to be able to hire, that were there when I got there, and really mold them together to do what happened. They did it.
Wow.
I was the CEO, absolutely. There's a certain amount of leadership that's required, but
Yeah.
you need great people.
So basically by 2022, you're a hot commodity. Companies want you.
2022 Fluence is a hot commodity.
Yeah, but
right?
you're the
So
CEO,
I'm the
so-
CEO of Fluence.
Uh-huh.
I'm the leader of a great team of people. Okay, let's back up a little bit. Osram is running this thing. Their goal is really to catch Philips, who's the big 900-pound gorilla in the space.
Yeah.
Osram gets acquired by a company called AMS. AMS does it, I think it was more hostile than anything else. They bought a whole bunch of their stock.
Got it.
To the point where they had to sell it to them. And AMS had visions of what they wanted to do with Osram that was much more focused on automotive and automotive sensors and lighting, I believe. So I get notification that, look, they're going to divest of almost all of the companies that Osram owns. You guys are on the block. In 2021, I think the process starts where I was told, you and your team are going to help us sell this business.
Yeah.
There was an open bidding process. I don't know how many people bid on it. I want to say like 20, but it could have been 50, it could have been 10. I don't really know.
Yeah.
And then it got really crazy
Holy
for a
crap.
year of, 1 hour pitches to companies, Q&As. They whittled it down from the original pool, whoever they were, to like 5 to 3 to 2.
Yeah.
And Signify Philips wins.
Got it.
And it's announced, I think, end of 2021. And the deal closed in, I think, the end of March 2022.
Wow.
Yeah. And now we're owned by Signify.
Yeah.
Philips, which is a monster.
Yeah.
The biggest lighting company in the world, essentially. And at that point, I could start to feel the effects of waking up every day and running as fast as you can until you fall asleep.
Yeah.
So
That's what I wanted to ask you about, because I struggle with work-life balance and anxiety, and not like sometimes I'm at dinner with my girlfriend and she could see that I'm just freaking out about like a client or
you're
work.
not
and-
present.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how did you? Because you have a family, wife, a kid. How did you manage that?
Look, I don't want to profess that it's easy.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Anxiety is the least of the things that you're dealing with when you're in that super hyper intense mode. I think after the sale to Philips, it was clear to me that I was thriving in that entrepreneurial full speed mode. And Philips is a great company.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't sure if I wanted to kind of settle into now this is how your life is going to
Yeah.
be. So about halfway into the first year, I kind of knew that my heart was very much conflicted with the people in the team that got me to where it was, but my passion for speed and intensity.
Yeah.
So I gave my notice, jumped to a startup, that I felt was going to be very similar in upstate New York. It just didn't work out for a lot of different reasons, and I needed to take a break. So I just took a deep breath and said, you know what, let's see how everything goes. Now, to your question, what I did and what works for me is I just started to become a lot more aware of my need for speed, right?
Interesting.
And the need to balance that off. So I did a couple of things that I still do today. There are times when I don't do it very well, but I'm practicing it actively right now. And I posted this on my LinkedIn page as kind of a, this is what works for me. This isn't the recipe. Everybody's got to figure it out themselves. Get up a half an hour earlier than I want to every morning and meditate.
Wow.
So learning how to do that was extremely difficult. Just sitting quietly with your eyes closed.
For someone whose life is so fast-paced,
Don't pick up your phone the first thing you wake up. Don't do anything other than sit quietly, okay? Number 2 is spend a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes writing in a journal and reflecting. For me, what works is reflecting on what I'm grateful for, because there's always something every day that's not right. There's always something to be pissed off about. But I write in a gratitude journal. Sometimes I write pages and pages. Sometimes I write 2 or 3 things. Sometimes I write, I'm grateful that I woke up. Right? That I actually woke up today. And number 3, and I got this from a video that I saw, there's this general in the military who said you should start each day with an accomplishment, make your bed.
That's it,
Make your bed. It's the first thing every day. So I meditate, I write what I'm grateful for, I make my bed, because I now know that I've done something. The day has started with an accomplishment.
With a win.
And no matter how south the day goes, I know that I made my bed.
And you get to come home to a made bed.
Exactly.
Which is comforting.
Exactly. So, I mean, for me, look, I'm not that kind of person that says you have to do this, you have to do that. But that worked a lot. It's centering.
Totally. I hear a lot about, meditation, gratitude journals, but I see it on social media and I just ignore it. I'm like, that's never going to work. But hearing it from you, because I'm sure 10 years ago you'd be like, you'd reject something like that.
The day that I tried to do it, I mean, I failed for a while. Apps and this thing and that thing, and you're sitting there listening. But what I did, a lot of people know this, but I went to a silent meditation retreat. For 3 days. I jumped in the deep end. So this was no talking, no writing, no reading, no electronics, no nothing. You just sit for 3 days. And after the first day, I thought I was going to kill myself. It was like, what is this? But eventually, you just get comfortable with being with yourself, and just being quiet. So again, I'm not out there pitching to the world. I'm just saying that's what works for me.
And I think it can work for a lot of people. And thanks for sharing that. So let's talk about, we're finally caught up to date, 2024. Green Rebates has had a lot of wins. I think having you come on board is a big win for Green Rebates. So I just want to know how that happened.
So after I left Fluence, and while I was in the startup I was working in New York, right at the end of that tenure, Dylan reached out to me, just cold reached out. Said, hey, I'd like to connect and pick your brain. So, sure. And we get on the phone, and he just, he said, look, I think I have the tiger by the tail here. I have great aspirations for what I want to do. I would really love to have somebody that has been there, done that, as a sounding board. And we started really, really short and small. We would talk an hour here, an hour there. When the thing ended in New York and I had some extra bandwidth, I let him know. We increased it a little bit more, and then I started to see that this guy really has, he's a visionary. Right. He was like the next thing after the Nick Clace from Fluence for me, somebody who really knew where they wanted to go. And Dylan was very much honest about, I'm just not sure how to get there, and I want somebody as an advisor. And that started a journey that has come full circle. And as he got his hands into more things and had bigger and bigger visions for what he wanted to do, he just leaned in with me more and more. Really, really fortunate. Look, we hit it off personally, we hit it off professionally, and the whole thing culminated with just last night him being able to acquire Synergy. Which is it's just unbelievable. Being able to sit there and watch him and Bob Gunn sit at the table together negotiate the last 2 or 3 points, and then in today's world, you don't sign anything, picked up their phones and did a DocuSign.
Yeah.
And being the person that was sitting there watching it, a lot of fulfillment for me.
Right, and you've seen so many deals happen over the years. How does this one compare to like?
They're all hard, man. I'll tell you,
Yeah.
and that's what really my business does, is helps these leaders navigate through. It's rocky. No matter how good it goes, there's always going to be 3 or 4 points that you feel like the whole thing's falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
The world's caving in on you. He had to go get funding to do this. The funding has its own challenges. Negotiating an M&A transaction has its own challenges.
Mm-hmm.
His wife got pregnant in the middle of it, dealing with like the walls are closing in.
Yeah.
And just being able to be the voice of reason for him.
Totally.
And, be like, look, dude, you're right where you're supposed to be. Don't worry about it. It's
Well,
all going to work out.
I'm very appreciative of you because maybe if it weren't for your help, I don't know if I'd be here. I think you're responsible for the growth.
I like to think that, these things all happen for a reason.
Right.
He reached out to me at exactly the right point in time, and I give him all of the credit. Like,
Totally.
I've helped him absolutely, but you got to have the drive, you have to have the vision to pull off the kind of stuff that he's pulling off. So kudos to him.
And we're sitting in the Green Rebates booth. Obviously, it's a company that's going well. Why do you think this is the last question before we interview my boy Adam over there? But my last question is, why do you think Green Rebates has found success, especially over the last few years?
I think it's people like Dylan that see the status quo in something. Nick Clay saw it. The guy that hired me, Nick Scarfo, at Fluence all those years ago, at Frame all those years ago, they see something and they know that it can be done better, differently, and they have the guts to do it.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, you have to be able to face a lot of rejection.
Yeah.
And a lot of naysayers and a lot of, you don't know what you're doing, that's not the way we do it.
Uh-huh.
And I think I see unlimited upside for Green Rebates.
Yes.
Really do.
Amazing. Well, I'm so happy that you're kind of like my boss in a way, or a
Yeah,
colleague.
he's the guy. He's in charge. I'm the guy that has no responsibility, no accountability. That's it.
Sounds like you're living the dream. You earned that title, though.
Absolutely.
David, thank you so much.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for your time. Great
Absolutely,
being here.
brother. Yeah, it's been great.